I want to know the wildest tyrant that you've ever seen in Orange County in terms of a board member.
I've seen a lot of tyrants.
Yeah.
We've seen tyrants, often the tyrants that I've seen and dealt with personally are so driven on, sort of, I would say, bettering their home and just enforcing rules to their neighbors. So, they have a beautiful home.
Yeah.
And they are bullying neighbors to the left and right.
Yeah.
I had one situation where all of a sudden neighbors on the flanking sides of the home were under constant attack.
Yeah.
And when we started to really look at it, no one else was getting any sort of notices or violations. It was only these two homes. And so both of these neighbors retained us. And we ended up finding out that this tyrant of a board member absolutely wanted to, sort of do things differently to the side of these two homes against these homeowners' wishes.
Yeah.
Just to improve his home.
Just to maintain.
Yeah, it was this really horrible situation, but it was so egregious. I mean, normally it's, a tyrant isn't that blatantly obvious. They're obvious to an extent, but they don't target to the left and to the right. I'm Luke Carlson, and for almost 2 decades, my law firm, Ellis Carlson Law, has been at the forefront of defending homeowners against overreaching HOAs. We're not just leading the charge, we've created the go-to playbook on how to fight back effectively. Join us as we delve into the world of HOA disputes, sharing insights from our extensive experience and landmark victories. Throughout this podcast, we'll bring you in-depth interviews, demystify complex legal principles, and provide practical tips to safeguard your rights. While the information provided shouldn't be taken as legal advice, our aim is to empower you with the knowledge, strategies, and real-life success stories needed to navigate and overcome the challenges posed by overreaching HOAs. Hi, I'm Luke Carlson of Ellis Carlson Law. Welcome back to the show. Today's topic is very interesting. I'll get to that in a second. We have Marty. We have Marty on as well. Marty, welcome back.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Good to have you. So why don't you tell the audience what our topic is?
So the topic today is interesting, and I know you're going to love it because I know how much you love talking about yourself.
Yes.
And that's, for the audience, that's complete sarcasm, and this is going to be like pulling teeth for you. I think you'd rather go to the orthodontist or dentist than have to do this.
I like learning about other people. I like learning their biography. I like their back history.
Yeah.
I'm not so interested in mine, but I understand the...
Well, how about this? I am, so we'll explore this together.
Fair.
Okay, so the topic today is learning a little bit about you, how you got into this area, and really talk about some of the challenges in HOA law, specifically here in Orange County. I mean, we're based here in Orange County. You know this, better than most. You know the area, and kind of talk a little bit about the unique challenges in Orange County. And then in future series, we're actually going to have a couple people that I know we have based in Florida, Orlando, West Palm Beach, in Palm Springs. There's a lot of people that are based in your firm in those areas, and I'd like to know about the challenges and the unique situations that they face, and talk about that. So
yeah, I love that, the geography part of it, because Orange County is very unique when it comes to association disputes.
Yeah.
So this will be fun. And Florida is very unique. Palm Springs is very unique. So I think this will be a fun show.
Yeah. So, but the first thing we got to talk about is you.
Let's just rip the Band-Aid off.
As the person behind it. The first thing, let's go back years here.
Okay. Origin story.
Yeah, origin story. Everyone wants to know a good origin story. Where'd you grow up?
So grew up in Florida. Often people say, is that why we have an office in Florida?
Yeah.
I guess there's some truth to that, in the sense that, yes, I know Florida market very well.
Yeah.
But, we really looked at the Florida market before we went into Florida and determined that the data, the real estate problems that they were having were very similar to Orange County.
Yeah.
So that was a real push into Florida. But yeah, I grew up in Florida.
Where at in Florida?
South Florida, Boca Raton.
Okay.
Yeah.
They have surf in Florida? I know you're an avid surfer.
I'm an avid surfer, and they really don't have much surf in Florida. We have a world champion, Kelly Slater, who came out of Florida. We have some great surfers, but because of the lack of surf, that's what actually brought me out to California in the first place.
When did you come out to California?
In 2000.
In 2000, how old were you in 2000?
I don't know. 19?
Okay, so were you surfing long before that?
Long before that.
Like, what day did you start surfing?
I was in middle school when I started.
Okay,
Which,
but with no surf.
No, sir, little surf.
Little surf.
And when you're in middle school, 1 foot is decent. That's
Yeah.
enough. That's all you need.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I grew up, I did some competitive surfing while in Florida, was able to travel the world. I wasn't good enough.
Oh, you glossed over that. You did competitive surfing on 1 foot waves and were able to compete around the world?
Yeah, I competed in South Africa, which was
No
a
kidding.
tremendous experience.
How old were you then?
I was probably 16, 17.
Okay. So you picked this up pretty quick.
I did my best, yeah. But I wasn't good enough to actually make a career out of it.
Yeah.
I had a lot of friends who were phenomenal surfers, and I was sort of the tag along. I was the plus one in that world, which was fine. It was still a great experience.
So 19 rolls around and you decide to move out here, and you moved out here for the surf?
Primarily, obviously to go to school, college. I knew the surfing thing wasn't really going to shape or take form. It was more of a passion or a hobby.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to go to school, go to college.
Yeah.
And I had a good friend who was out at Claremont McKenna.
Okay.
And so he really encouraged me to come out here. And I did. I just committed to California, and I've been here ever since.
When you were filling out those applications, where'd you end up getting accepted? And what'd you go into college thinking that you were going to do?
So I ended up landing at Chapman. That's where I got my degree.
Okay, so local.
Yeah, local school, wonderful school.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful experience at Chapman. It is such a great university. They have a great law school.
Yeah.
And it was close to Newport Beach. So that has great surf. So it all kind of worked out nicely.
Man, your life changed through that whole experience.
Yeah, no. So that was it was a great decision. But yeah, initially it was driven by surf, but through the Chapman University experience, I started off as a marketing major, and I learned very quickly after my first class that really wasn't my cup of tea. And I don't know why.
What did you want to be like? You were watching too much Mad Men and said, I want to be an advertising
I don't think
executive.
Mad Men was out at that time.
Oh, that's true.
That was before Mad Men.
Okay.
It was an interesting space. And, when you're young and you don't really have a definitive goal, advertising, I suppose it sounded cool in theory.
Yeah.
It sounded like, cool, you're putting together ads and visuals and making commercials. And that sort of was interesting at first. But, my mind has always been very strategic. I think I like to go a little bit deeper on topics. I like complex problems.
Yeah.
And so I think from an intellectual perspective, it didn't really carry the day for me.
Okay. So when did you decide to switch?
Yeah, I switched after one marketing class.
That was short-lived.
Yeah, I took one. I did well. I did okay. But then I enrolled in the political science department and eventually landed on political theory as a background.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So that's what you got your undergrad in, political theory?
Yep. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so then how was the transition to becoming a lawyer?
So I'll have to give credit to my wife at the time, my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Her father was a lawyer, and he was the first lawyer I met. And I started to interact with him, learned more about what he did.
What kind of law did he practice?
He was general, a lot of government affairs, transactional business. He was a Swiss Army knife, if you will, of a lawyer. And it just interested me what he was doing and the problems that he was facing. And my wife's grandfather was also a lawyer. So just kind of being in that environment really sparked that interest in going to law school. So I guess that was the origin of it.
And you met your wife there, didn't you?
At Chapman.
At Chapman.
Yeah.
Okay. During the marketing class?
No. I met her first day of school. Or before. So classes didn't even start. And we were at some sort of function. I think it was an 80s night. It was an 80s night. And we met there. And we've been together ever since.
Oh, that's wild. Okay, so you got into law school. You got your undergrad, decided to pursue law. What type of law were you, at that point, were you trying to pursue?
So, initially entertainment was very interesting to me. But again, I didn't really have, it sounded great in theory. So when I started at this firm, we explored entertainment to an extent, but it really didn't, it wasn't necessarily what I was looking for.
So entertainment law, that's an interesting choice. What sparked that interest?
So growing up, I mentioned competitive surfing. I was also doing some modeling. I did some commercial work, and that was really funding everything, right? It funded my school. It funded law school. And so I'd already been sort of exposed to the entertainment industry, right? So I had some connections there. I understood the industry to an extent. And so that was sort of my first, okay, this seems like a very organic, natural segue into
Okay.
that space.
And did you explore entertainment law at all?
We did. We had some pretty interesting clients. We did it for a year or two, and I enjoyed it. But we were situated in Orange County, and I think if you really wanted to make something of it, you had to be in LA. And it wasn't really as rewarding as I thought it was going to be, for whatever reason.
So working on entertainment law, what other areas did the firm practice at that point?
So we were big on business and real estate. And
Okay.
so what was interesting there is, we were dealing with very complex business disputes.
Yeah.
A lot of it was very contentious, which I enjoyed just because there was so much strategy in that.
Yeah.
So, a lot of what I did in the entertainment space was more transactional, right? It was putting
Sure.
together agreements. The business dispute space and the real estate dispute space was very exciting, right? It was very competitive.
Yeah.
You had an opposition. You had to outmaneuver the other side. And I loved it.
Yeah.
I clicked very much into that space, much more than I did the transactional space.
Okay.
So dispute, conflict. I guess I really enjoy conflict for whatever reason. It makes me feel at ease with that sort of direct conflict, I guess.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't don't you circulate The Art of War to like every new associate that you have here?
We have done that historically, which is a wonderful book, by the way.
Yeah.
I try to read it every year.
Yeah.
It's very practical. I mean, listen, if you're in litigation, if you are a lawyer dealing with disputes, The Art of War is a phenomenal read.
Yeah.
So
How the heck did you go from business transactions and I guess some litigation and as well as real estate? How did HOA come about? Because now, I mean, you guys have led the space now for over a decade. I mean, you really have changed the game, and a lot of people have sprung up from this, from you guys starting it. How did that even begin?
yeah, so that is an interesting origin story because when we first started, very few attorneys did any homeowner representation.
It was all on the other side.
It was mostly on the other side. And when we started to look at the space, we realized it was very complex. It wasn't straightforward. And so I think a lot of attorneys shied away from it because of that. Because if you look at it, you say, okay, it's association law. How hard could it be? But when we dove into it, you start to realize you're dealing with governing documents, right? So that's a huge contractual element. You have case law, which is interpreting that. You have state law. In California, it's the Davis-Sterling Act. And then you have, fiduciary obligations and relationships, and you have all of these different competing influences, right? And so once we looked at it and we started to really realize how a homeowner can gain leverage and power from this base, we started to do really amazing work. And we started to, carve out a really great name for ourselves.
Do you remember your first HOA client?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I do actually. It was I do remember that. It's been a while, over a decade ago. It was a roofing dispute. Our client had a beautiful condo, and the association hired a roofer to come out. And the roofer comes out, opens a big hole in the common area roof.
Yeah.
And there was a huge storm that was forecasted for weeks. They're like, hey, this huge torrential rain is coming.
Was that here in Orange County?
Orange County.
Okay.
And the roofer never sealed the hole. So our client, the unit was completely flooded. The whole thing got washed out. So she goes and she says to the association, reimburse me. I had to move out. I have this new cost of living.
Yeah.
And we ended up looking at it. We ran it through ADR. We ended up going to mediation. And I remember the mediation and the association counsel, liability was very clear. Right, it was an agency theory. The association hired the roofer, so liability was crystal clear in my mind and the mediator's mind. The association counsel told me to go kick rocks within 20 minutes. And I told the mediator to convey to the opposing counsel that we are going to litigate. Because at that time, we went through the ADR steps. We preserved our right to attorney's fees.
Yeah.
And the attorney's fees were relatively low at the time. And I said, listen, if we have to litigate, this is going to get so expensive for the association.
Yeah.
And they thought we were bluffing. We weren't.
Yeah.
So we end up, not settling at mediation, filing the lawsuit, and we fought that case up to a week before the mediation. And a week before trial. we got a call from the insurance carrier, and they wanted an emergency mediation because they knew they were going to lose.
Yeah.
And our attorney's fees were quite large at the time.
Were you dealing with the association's attorney or their insurance company's attorney? Okay.
Both. We had both counsel.
Okay.
And we ended up doing an emergency mediation.
Yeah.
And they opened in the first 20 minutes saying, we're going to give you everything you want. Don't take this to trial. And then funny enough, I heard, I don't know if this is true, the counsel who represented the association at the mediation was quickly fired after that.
Oh, geez.
Right. Because they had an opportunity to settle.
Yeah.
And that was the first time we saw, okay, we really have a strategy here. We have a very coordinated attack on these associations at work.
Yeah.
And from then, it's sort of evolved ever since.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So you guys start to expand upon that. You did really well in that one, and then decided to expand. I assume you pursued like marketing endeavors and started cultivating that.
Word got out. I think I think I knew when we really made it as a law firm in this space is when judges who were sitting on the bench started to retain us for representation, or we got referrals from the bench.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful judge refer his mother-in-law to us. And when you see that come down the pipeline, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
And that was a really great moment for the firm.
What in this space did you guys kind of pioneer? I mean, obviously the strategy, you guys dove deep into it. I mean, you're thousands of cases deep at this point. I mean, where were some of the turning points that really established you as the go-to firm? And I'm assuming opposing counsel sees you now. You're like, oh no, not these guys again.
Well, reputation carries a lot of weight now.
Yeah.
But I think initially it was just very sound strategy.
Yeah.
How to run these cases, how to be efficient with them, how to be economic with them, how to really understand how the opposition is going to work.
Yeah.
Because often, I mean, if you're not in the space and an association counsel steps in, there's a lot of gamesmanship, unfortunately. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some good association counsel that I respect, but often, they'll sort of play these games with you. And if you kind of know what they're going to do and what their strategies are, it's easier. We're in a better position to outmaneuver.
Yeah.
And so just sticking to sound strategy, but also being dynamic.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just some play that we run every single time. I mean, we have a framework for it.
Yeah.
But our attorneys have been trained how to be dynamic, how to look for, the games that they play, look for tripwires.
Yeah.
And I think it just came together quite nicely.
Yeah. So you build this firm in Orange County, and then I assume you kind of expanded out from there. Like it was kind of homegrown at first and then kind of expanded.
Yeah. Orange County was obviously that's where we're headquartered.
Yeah.
But then it obviously opened up to the San Diego market, the LA market, the Inland Empire, and then all the way up to, up north, Northern California as well.
Yeah. And then eventually you guys, as we kind of talked about in the beginning, kind of reached out to Florida at that point, which is funny. That's full circle, right back where you started from.
Exactly. And I can't speak highly enough of the Florida operation. They are just phenomenal. Every single lawyer, they're so well trained. Jeff Kaminsky is the managing partner.
Yeah.
And he has done such a wonderful job just leading the charge out in Florida for homeowners.
Yeah, Florida's interesting. It's funny how it differs too from California.
It does differ. From what Jeff has explained to me and what I've seen, Florida is really a lot of their laws and statutes are really aimed at protecting the homeowners.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a Florida lawyer, but my conversations with Jeff and
we've had podcasts and it's actually some of the laws there are tremendous.
Yeah. So Jeff is doing a great job, and we're going to get him on the podcast as well. Because I think Florida is such a great market. Yeah.
Well, let's transition back to Orange County. Okay. So you've done this. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I was just looking at this today. Going into 2025, this will be 18 years.
I'll have to defer to you on that.
Yeah, I think it was 17 years. It was 17 years this year, so it's going to be 18 years.
We've been in the space for a very long time. This firm has been at it for a very long time.
Yeah. Yes. So talk to me about Orange County specifically. This is where you started. This is where it's home turf. Tell me about some of the unique challenges. And I mean, since you've done so many different cases in LA and San Diego and the Bay Area and all those areas, What specifically in Orange County is something that you see happen frequently? What are the disputes that you see often?
So I would say the big ticket items or the things that we see quite frequently, specific to Orange County,
Yeah.
a lot of issues with slopes, believe it or not, sloping issues.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the neighborhoods are set up on slopes. So you have the homeowner's property, and then you have a common area slope. So you see a lot of failures to maintain the common area slope, which causes property damage.
Is that mostly like water intrusion, or is it just?
So you got water intrusion. You have situations where the association has just failed to maintain the vegetation. And I'm not a slope expert, but my understanding based upon our experts, we'll bring in experts to confirm this. But when you have a slope that has a bunch of plants or trees or shrubs, often those stabilize the slope. But what happens is the association will fail to maintain. They won't water the plants or they won't care for the plants, and they all die. And all of a sudden, the slope is compromised. So that's an issue we see quite frequently. View disputes, that happens. So you have an association where you have view rights according to the governing documents, meaning that other properties can't block your view. Maybe you have a nice ocean view, right? Especially along the coastline.
Yeah.
And your neighbor who's in front of you decides to build in front of you, blocking your view to the ocean, right? So that issue comes up quite a bit. And then often we see issues with roofing, common area roofs. I mentioned
Like
the
your
first case.
yeah.
That was unique because that was actually a roofing company that came out that kind of screwed up and didn't patch it or didn't cover a big hole. But what we see more frequently is a failure to maintain the common area roof. And so because it doesn't rain all the time here, right? Often we don't know, or the association isn't proactive in inspecting the roof yearly, or there's roofing issues that they defer. They say, you know what, we're not going to worry about it because it doesn't rain. Then all of a sudden a huge rain event occurs and condos get flooded.
Yeah.
And the reason is because the association failed to maintain the common area. They didn't get roofers up there. They didn't inspect, or they knew about a hole or a compromised roof and they took no action. So that's fairly common in Orange County.
Okay. I know a lot of has been made of like ADUs and stuff this day. Like the fact that California law has changed where they really want to try to fix the housing crisis.
They're bullish on ADUs,
Yeah.
in a good way.
Yeah.
It absolutely favors the homeowner. We do see a lot of ADUs. That's true. Mostly it's homeowners wanting to put in an ADU, and they're getting a lot of pushback from an association. And the way California is set up, the homeowners have a tremendous amount of rights that they can leverage to get these projects through. But often what happens is they'll put their application through the Architectural Control Committee, and the ACC will deny it for some reason, right? And so we'll have to come in and sort of help push that process along.
Is that pretty effective, though? I mean, especially with, I guess, the laws today.
Yeah, often the problem is the Architectural Control Committee isn't up on the most current law.
I see.
Right. So in their little world, they're saying denied. We come in and we explain the law.
Yeah.
It goes up to their attorney, and the attorney will see it and say, okay, it looks like we're going to have to educate the committee.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And I would assume that along with that is solar. I mean, California's put a huge emphasis on solar. I mean, I don't know how many times you get knocked on your door, but I get at least once a month someone come in my door and says, California's got a new incentive. You got to do do solar here.
Yeah, solar is a newer dispute that we've seen, and it cuts two ways. One, the association is trying to limit or curb the installation of solar, which becomes an issue, a homeowner versus association. And then we have a whole other side of this where the solar companies have defrauded or have breached a contract or failed to install properly the actual solar panels.
Yeah.
Which isn't really an HOA dispute.
Sure.
That becomes more of a breach of contract.
Is most of the disputes with HOAs just that the neighbors just don't want to see the panels on the roof? Is that like the main gripe? Because if you don't see them, who cares?
Yeah, or they're creating a lot of problems with the installation. So let's say you have a solar panel that you want to get on your roof.
Yeah.
You run it through the ACC, which again is the Architectural Control Committee.
Sure.
And they say, well, we don't like your panel here. We want to put it over here. But if you put it in the second spot that was identified by the ACC, it's going to be more costly. It's not going to work as well. And it just doesn't work for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Right. And so that is really where the dispute is.
Interesting. And then I know we talked a little bit about this in a previous episode, but the desire, I think California, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just going to paraphrase here, that California is bullish on drought tolerant plants as well. And that can go against the rules of the Architectural Control Committee. Is that not?
Yeah, that was a very hot topic a while ago. We're not. I don't think we're getting as many as we used to.
Okay.
It seems like that information has infiltrated the associations. People have a better understanding of the space. But yeah, originally there was a lot of disputes or conflict that arose. It was a big friction point.
And is most of that just resolved? I mean, it's really based on, well, California says you can do it, so
yeah.
time to
Often
kick rocks.
with those types of disputes, it's more of an educational strategy.
Yeah.
Just laying out the law and getting the adult in the other side to see it, right?
Yeah.
Adult typically is the attorney.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So I want to know the wildest tyrant that you've ever seen in Orange County in terms of a board member.
I've seen a lot of tyrants.
Yeah.
We've seen tyrants. Often the tyrants that I've seen and dealt with personally are so driven on, sort of, I would say, bettering their home and just enforcing rules to their neighbors. So, they have a beautiful home.
Yeah.
And they are bullying neighbors to the left and right.
Yeah.
I had one situation where all of a sudden neighbors on the flanking sides of the home were under constant attack.
Yeah.
And when we started to really look at it, no one else was getting any sort of notices or violations. It was only these two homes. And so both of these neighbors retained us. And we ended up finding out that this tyrant of a board member absolutely wanted to, sort of do things differently to the side of these two homes against these homeowners' wishes.
Yeah.
Just to improve his home.
Just to maintain.
Yeah. It was this really horrible situation, but it was so egregious. I mean, normally it's, a tyrant isn't that blatantly obvious. They're obvious to an extent, but they don't target to the left and to the right.
Yeah.
But that's all it was. All of the resources were going after these two neighbors of the tyrant. I thought that was very egregious.
Yeah.
Because it was so obvious what was happening. Because when you pressed them on it, it's like, well, what about these 1,700 houses where you guys don't even do anything about, right?
Yeah.
Why is it only these two houses? And, really what happened is the individual took control of the board strictly to go after his neighbors.
Okay. Do you think that he decided to run for the board to take control
Oh,
of
absolutely. No, that was the agenda.
Unbelievable.
That was the fact pattern. He got on the board and within a matter of days, he started to target the neighbors.
Unbelievable.
So maybe that's not, the absolute worst conduct, but it was the most obvious example of a tyrant that I've seen.
All right. Well, tell me, what about any other persona types that would be interesting? A meddler, someone that's unjustly enriching themselves, embezzlement.
Yeah, unjust enrichment is interesting. I've seen situations where you have a board member who has set up companies, LLCs, and given all the contracts to the LLCs.
So egregious.
At just a ridiculous. So, for example, let's say landscaping is $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
And then you look at what he's paying or what the association is paying this LLC, and it's like a multiplier of 4 times the market value. Wow. And, sometimes.
And there's not requirements to get 3 bids in order
there's a lot of requirements. There's a lot of rules and regulations around it. But if no one's
and
no one's enforcing, you're getting away with it until you're not. So that's pretty egregious stuff.
Unbelievable. All right. Favorite place to surf in Orange County?
Lowers.
Lowers.
Yeah, I don't know if I should say that. I don't know if that's going to get the Lowers crew upset with me. But yeah, Trestles, Lowers. It's not like Lowers is a secret though. That's in San Clemente. Although technically I think it's San Diego County, but San Clemente claims
If you lived in North County, where would you surf?
North County.
Yeah, North Orange County.
Probably, I guess, would Newport count as
Newport?
North
Yeah,
County?
absolutely. Yeah.
Newport.
Absolutely.
I love Newport.
Yeah.
Newport's a great place.
When you first started surfing here, where was the spot that you...
Newport.
Was it Wedge?
No, God, no.
I forgot you were used to the 1 foot waves.
Yeah, not the Wedge. Mostly 54th Street or River Jetties.
Yeah.
That's a great spot too.
What's the perfect size wave?
I would say 4 to 5.
Okay.
Yep.
How do you like the shape?
I like point breaks.
Okay.
Long waves.
Okay.
But I like Newport because it's a short wedgie wave, which is a little bit different. But that's when it's working, it is a phenomenal wave. I think.
Yeah.
Newport.
All right, last thing, because you're an Orange County guy. Favorite place? Where's your go-to place to go get food? Go-to.
My house. I don't get out much.
I'm not gonna let you off the hook.
My favorite place?
Yeah, where are you going? If it's date nights, kids want it, whatever.
Oh, I like TJ Woodfire Grill.
Where's that?
I think that's what it's called. It's a pizza place near my home. It's in San Clemente.
Okay.
I like it because it's proximity. It's a minute from my house. It has good pizza. It's always quiet. Yeah, that's.
We learned a lot about you just in that one.
Geography is half the battle for me. If it's within a minute, you're already in the running for my favorite restaurant.
That narrows it down.
So,
well, this has been interesting.
This has been fun.
Yeah, I appreciate the insight. It's always fun to get to know the origin story and talk a little bit about your expertise in the area, and particularly our backyard. So that was great.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to the additional conversations we'll have with the other attorneys too. So.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. And if you have a moment, please subscribe, and also feel free to leave comments because we do review those.
We do.
So until next time, thank you.